everybody, it is Dean Z speaking to you from my office for our very special Answer All the Questions episodes. Let's see if I can blow through the many questions that have come in. Thanks to everybody who sent one. Let's get started, shall we? Okay, these are going to be in no particular order, by the way, so enjoy. From Lai Ping. I have a question regarding when an applicant should or should not contact an admissions office regarding a typo. That was Lai Ping's scare quotes made on their application. And specifically, this has to do with the wrong date in the resume. And it's one that probably a reader would pick up on as a mistake because she meant to say 2025 to 2026, but she said 2025 to 2024. Probably pick up on it, but it does look, number one, it's mildly confusing. Number two, it does look a little lack of attention to detail, like very mildly. I don't want to freak anybody out, but like there's, whatever. So I actually think that is one worth correcting. I would just send an email and say, I realize the wrong dates were on my resume. I've attached a corrected resume, and let the office do with it what they will. But you did your best then to correct it, and I wouldn't worry about it at all. So, but yes, worth doing. Next question. I really like this one. From Le Fluffy Pink. Some schools have multiple essays, personal statement, diversity statement, a challenge you've overcome. How important is it for them to be similar or different and play off each other? And the reason I really love this question is because Le Fluffy Pink goes on to give specific details about their topics. I'm applying for technical things, which I discuss in my personal statement, but also want to talk about my social justice activity, diversity statement, and about my chronic leg surgeries, overcome challenges. I'm not sure how to show I'm a strong technical candidate, but also show my human side that's pretty unrelated. This is really great. You are doing it perfectly. So on the one hand, if you're doing multiple essays, you want them all to be consistent. You don't want to have two essays where it's like, I love the sky, and then another one that's like, I only love the ground, right? The two things have to be harmonious with each other. But that doesn't mean they have to be repetitive in any way. And in fact, they shouldn't be. This is all separate real estate that you are trying to fill in. So you want to pick different topics, but they need to be harmonious. To me, the three things you have given as examples are all harmonious. There's no tension between them. There's no conflict between them. You can absolutely be interested in the technical side of the law. I assume you mean technology there. I'm not really that's my assumption, but it doesn't matter. And still be interested in social justice and have had some obstacle overcome. Absolutely fine. So yeah, so you want consistent and harmonious, but not repetitive. I hope that is helpful. Thank you for that question. Next. Is it recommended, this is from user number. Is it recommended that reapplicants change their personal statements and answer different supplementals? Do admissions review previous applications with the new one? So we all have the prior application available. Whether an office goes back to look at it will vary from office to office, and perhaps from reader to reader and from candidate to candidate. But you have to be aware that yes, they are available. And if the same person read your application last year and the essays are memorable in some way, they may actually remember them. So that definitely happens to me and to my first readers, that you think, oh, I remember seeing this essay last year, or I think I did, and that might prompt you to go back and look in all of it. So for that reason, you probably should change it up. But even without that, in any event, you should change it up because you know that the first time it didn't work. You didn't get admitted to the school that you wanted to go to, and now you are reapplying. So you have to go back with a critical eye and say, what can I do better? That might be just small tweaks, or it might be wholesale redoing of essays. But yes, my best advice is you should be taking a second look and making at least revisions to whatever you submitted previously, regardless of whether anybody's going back to look at the prior information. Okay, thanks. Good luck. Okay, here are two back-to-back combo questions about a YX school. The first one is from Yusra and asks, how do you write a YX law school statement without it sounding surface level / generic? And then relatedly, an email that we got from Isaac that says, my question is, if I religiously follow all things about a given school, research put out by different departments, sports, newsletters, school history, etc., is there a way to incorporate that into my law school application that would be of any benefit? I'm just trying to find out if there's any way to incorporate unbridled passion for a particular school into application materials for law school. So, Isaac, you should definitely be writing a why X essay. And Yusra, maybe you shouldn't be, because you don't have to be an incredible, religious advocate for a given school to write a YX statement, but you should have specific things that you are thinking about that school that makes it stand out from other schools in some way. Doesn't mean you only write it about one school. You can have many schools that stand out from other schools in many ways. But if you are thinking about a school in a generic way, then the chances are you're going to write a generic essay, and you should maybe write some other essay other than that. But if you really feel like you want to write a why whatever school essay about a school and you don't have a lot of content for it, you need to get that content. That might be going to events where you can meet people from that school. That might be attending online sessions if they have such things. It might be asking your pre-law advisor if they can connect you to anybody who went to that law school from your undergrad school. It might be, cold emailing a couple people who are alumni and trying to have a conversation. Although the latter is a rough one, and not all lawyers are going to respond to that because lawyers are extremely busy. So that might not be fruitful advice. But try to get as much information as you can. Do some reading. Don't limit yourself to the school's website. Do some outside reading to find out about maybe the area or maybe, again, the history of the school or whatever it is. Try to have some specific content that will be interesting for the school to read. And that means don't just repeat what's on their website because they wrote that and they don't want to read it again. All right, moving on. Here's a fun one from Cedric. How to answer the question why you want to go to law school and why you want to be a lawyer. Cedric, that's the question. You've nailed it. You got to answer that question for yourself. I can't answer it for you. If you don't have an answer in your heart yet, then it's not time for you to apply to law school. Moving on. From Alessia, should you submit an application with a pending LSAT and GPA or wait for the final LSAT and GPA to apply? If you have a pending LSAT score that's going to come in, wait till either that it comes in so that you can see what it is and make sure that it doesn't change where you're applying, like either because it's better or worse than you thought. Or if you're really sure you're going to apply to this school regardless of what the LSAT is, then you could send your application in maybe a week before the score gets there, but no more than that, because that way it gets completed in a time that your score comes in and it moves as quickly as possible through the process. But don't do it super far in advance because it will be hard for many offices to manage that. And then for the GPA, I guess I don't know what the timing would be, why you would have a pending GPA, maybe because you're still in school, in which case, yeah, do it before you get your final GPA because you're still in school, and we'll have continually updated GPAs through your senior year. Although I can't really figure out the other scenario there, so I hope that's helpful. Next question is from Claire. Do schools have any opinions on canceled LSAT scores? Does a large score increase between two scores harm the application? Okay. Well, the large score increase will never hurt your application because you have an increase. Sometimes people have a large score decrease when they retake. I don't think that hurts you, but I would explain it. If you have an explanation, if there's something you can say about why you think your score went down, that would be worth shedding some light on it. Yeah, but I think addenda are very helpful for clearing up mystery, but you don't need to submit an addendum if you don't actually have anything to clear up the mystery. So if you just have a large score differential and you're like, I don't know why, nothing to say, just move on. But if you do have something to say, it's worth sharing that. In terms of canceled LSAT scores, I don't think schools, if they see just one canceled score, it's nothing. If they see a series of them, yes, you are wondering what is going on that you keep sitting for the LSAT and somehow can't actually pull the trigger on getting that score. So yeah, I guess they might have an opinion about that. And that would be something that would be helpful to share in an addendum. I like the way this question is phrased from Lanico0. Is it bad to see an applicant take the LSATs 4 times? I think it's just like, is it bad to see it? No, it's not bad to see it. But does it look bad? Is that what you mean? It doesn't look great, right? You really want to try to take it as few times as possible. Each time that you take it, it gets a little less informative for us. So let's say I saw an application yesterday where somebody took it 4 times and it was 169, 170, 171, 172 in that order. So each time they're climbing up 1 point, right? And so that's, better than going down 1 point for sure. But those are all essentially the same score. Those are statistically insignificantly different. And so when I see that, I think, are you bad at self-assessing? Do you just think you have some other score inside you that you are not getting? Are you, I don't, just what's the story with why you're taking it 4 times? You started out with a good score, 169, and then you kept doing it. And so, the story I might tell myself about why that's happening will vary depending on the other information I can see in an application. But bottom line, you should try to take it as few times as possible. And I will just say, speaking only for myself, we know, we admissions officers know that the most predictive score when you've taken it multiple times, is the average score in most cases, unless there's some exceptional circumstance for why one score was really bad. And then the average perhaps is not the most useful, but most of the time it'll be the average that's the most useful. And if you're taking it 4 times, the likelihood that the school is going to pay more attention to the average increases. So, because there's just so many more scores, so it's like what to make of them, look at the average. So, if you've taken it 4 times, there's nothing to be done about that. Just don't worry about it and move on. But if you're thinking, should I just keep taking it over and over and see if I can get better? There's no cost to that. Yes, there is. Don't do that. Okay, next question. If my LSIC GPA is lower because of 2 low grades from a dual enrollment class in high school, should I address that? Wouldn't hurt. Yeah, I mean, that's usually the kind of thing that's pretty obvious, but it's also such a good reason for having a lower GPA. I took it in high school. I was really stretching myself, or I never thought about the fact that when I took this class in high school, it was going to pertain to my law school application, many years hence. So yeah, just a couple sentences, but I think that's worth addressing. Okay, Danielle M asks, I applied to schools last cycle, got into a few, but wanted to reapply this year, but earlier this time. I took my last LSAT in February. Would schools look at me negatively since I didn't retake it? It was my 3rd time taking it, and I just wanted to use that final score. Well, Danielle, I would not look at you negatively. I agree. At some point, 3 times, that's your score. So I think stick with that. That's good. Danielle mentions the school is at the median or a few points below my target schools. I would refer you guys to my long episode on medians to figure out how that works. Perhaps shockingly, there is a difference between being at the median and being just a few points below. So maybe check that out for more information. But yeah, I think sticking with your 3rd score is fine. And I really don't think anybody would think you should just keep taking it over and over again in the hopes of getting a different score. So good luck. Fortnight 2322 asks, should I apply if I take the January 2026 LSAT? I think what they are meaning to ask is, will I get my score too late to get in? First of all, lots of schools go very late with taking applications, right? Lots of schools go into May or further. So January 2026 is not late for many schools. It is on the later side for the schools that wrap up their applications in February, which are another big group of applications, or rather a big group of schools that do that. But even there, you're getting your score in time before the deadline. So I don't know. I think it depends on your score. I think it depends on everything else about your application. But I don't think there's any reason, in and of itself, why taking the January 26th test is going to put you off limits from getting admitted to whatever schools you're applying to. All right, now let's talk. We have a whole bunch of questions about splitters. Sophia asks, should I still apply to a school if the LSAT score is below the median, but the GPA is way above the median? Sophia, yes, you should. And again, I'm going to put another plug in for rewatching my episode on medians, which talks about this in great detail. Lots of schools admit lots and lots of splitters. So, and including when the GPA is the high score, as well as when the LSAT is the high score. So, yes, go for it. Iman 80963 asks, how much does SOFs matter if one's GPA and or LSAT are below a school's medians? By SOFs, I think he means everything that isn't the numbers. And it really depends on the school, right? Some schools are extremely numerically focused. Some schools are less so and are very interested in all the other things. And it depends on what your softs are, right? So, if it's, you have an amazing job, an amazing law-related job, that can carry a ton of weight. If you just seem like exceptionally engaging and interesting and great to be around, that can carry a lot of weight. But, I can't, in the abstract, really answer that well. But I would remind everybody that your non-metric factors matter even when you have great metrics. And they certainly matter if your metrics aren't great. And then I would also remind Iman, it sounds like it's just one score or the other that is below a school's median, in which case you're, again, an extremely, credible candidate, and your soft factors will carry a lot of weight. Good luck. Prod by Jazz asks a very similar question. How heavily do you weigh work experience with nonprofits, federal and county government? And could this give a splitter better odds of admission? Again, saying that you worked with nonprofits and government is not that precise, really. Like, there could be all there's just a lot of range there. But it sounds like you've had a lot of meaningful work experience, and that is a thing that law schools really often care about a great deal. I can tell you that it is, I think, becoming increasingly important in getting into law school, having good work experience, because the law firm hiring model has changed to move earlier in the law school cycle. So it is a comfort to a law school to know that the people they are admitting have had some experience of working regular hours and being in an office and being sort of ready to go to be a lawyer. That does not mean that you have had that specific law work experience or any other particular experience. It's just that we're looking for people who have sort of been, in the world a bit, and that could include summer jobs during during undergrad too. But work experience is a really great asset to have as part of your application. So yes, it can definitely help. Okay, Grace asks a question that I hear a lot. I am currently doing my PhD. It's not always a PhD, sometimes it's a master's degree, and want to apply to law school afterward. My undergrad GPA is a 3.2, but my graduate GPA is a 3.9. Would my graduate GPA do some work offsetting my undergraduate GPA, or would the undergraduate GPA still be the focus in terms of comparing to medians? It will definitely still be the undergrad GPA that is the focus when comparing to medians. The 3.9 definitely could help you. It shows you're capable, you've sort of redeemed that 3.2, right? It shows you're capable of doing work at a high level in a competitive environment. But it just doesn't, the GPA is used as a predictor of your 1L grades, and the PhD grades just aren't. There are many, many graduate programs in this world where the modal grade is an A. Law schools just don't have great information about whether you are in one of those kinds of programs or a program that is more challenging. They just don't have that the way they have information about your undergraduate GPA, thanks to LSAC. So it can help, but it will not overwrite that undergraduate GPA. It will be a limited asset, but it is an asset. Next question. Does having an academic misconduct incident on file decrease your chances of admission? Yes, but you can change that by explaining it well and thoroughly. But academic misconduct where you've cheated, that's something that schools care about a lot, because obviously academic integrity is extremely important in the law school world. And in fact, integrity in general is very important to being a lawyer. So schools will look at that carefully. So if you have that kind of incident, make sure you are explaining it in detail, non-defensively, taking responsibility, and trying to make up for it in any way you can. If possible, I always think this is like the ace in the hole if someone has academic misconduct, is getting a professor to say, I know about this and it does not worry me and I still am comfortable giving this person a recommendation. If you can get that, that does a lot of work to undoing any concern that an admissions office might have. Okay. Kimmy asks, should you address it if you withdrew from 2 classes during undergraduate? This is a tricky question, and I liked it. I can address it because I get some version of this question all the time, and it's so hard to answer in the abstract. In general, I'd say 2 W's, I don't know that you need, and no other weird things on the transcript. I don't know that you need to address that. I don't think you do. But maybe it looks different if there's some other things like, a semester where you're gone, or maybe it looks different if it's 2 in one semester versus 2 in different semesters, so on and so forth. What you should be doing when you're looking at your application and you see anything like this is you think like, would an objective third party who knows nothing about me except what I am telling them, would they have concerns about this? I mean, and you have to look at the application as a whole to try to figure that out. But that is your challenge. Like 1 or 2 little things, everybody's got 1 or 2 little things. I wouldn't worry about it in general. But if it sort of adds to a narrative that might be brewing in your application about, where the W's are sort of part of a consistent pattern, be aware of that. And then you need to address it. Okay? Okay. Cody is Dazed asks a great question. Should you address why you transferred undergraduate institutions, especially if you're applying to the school you transferred from? Yes, you should, especially if it is. Like if someone went to the school you're applying to. So if someone went to University of Michigan undergrad and transfers somewhere else and now is applying to University of Michigan Law School, there can be totally great reasons why that transfer made sense and they would still be interested in coming back to Michigan. But there could be lots of reasons why it would indicate they're not at all interested in coming back to Michigan. So addressing it would put any of those concerns to rest. I would highly recommend it. Now, if it's not the same school as the law school you're applying to, it's maybe more of a challenge to know whether, or it's a more difficult question, I suppose. I am always curious about it. Like, what made this person transfer? There's always a story there. I love knowing the stories. I don't think it is absolutely imperative that you address it, but it could be interesting and could be worth doing, just in a couple sentences. Chris asks, best advice for writing an explanation as to why grades aren't great. I changed my major and my major GPA is great, but overall not so much. You will know the answer to this better than I can, Chris. Like, if you just hated that first major and it just did not click with the way you think, and then you moved to a major that did and that you were more interested in, that's an explanation, and that is a good explanation. But if it's just sort of sometimes, honestly, sometimes it's just I wasn't ready for college. I didn't get the hang of it till later, or whatever. And maybe that's not the most compelling explanation. I think it's still worth saying, honestly. But suppose you have some explanation that you just feel like, I don't even know. I don't know why I didn't get great grades. The best thing you could do is to just put some distance between yourself and the grades, rather than to try to come up with an explanation when there might not actually be anything that is clear to you. Give an admissions office other things to look at. Good work, good volunteer experience, that you have matured, that you have done things since college. Those are all assets to you when you're applying with a lower GPA, or a lower LSAT, I guess, for that matter, too. But really very helpful for the GPA to get some space. Okay. Nico asks, do law schools factor in if you participated in official NCAA athletics? It's going to depend school to school. I would think most people will. I mean, that's a huge commitment of time, and you might want to make sure that that is evident to a reader who, let's say it's someone who just doesn't know a lot about NCAA sports. Not everybody works at the University of Michigan, which has given me quite an education in that realm. But I certainly didn't know anything about it when I started. And so saying how much time per week it consumed during, a given semester or a given school year, I think that can be helpful. And I think most people are impressed with people who can perform at a very high level that way. So yes, I think it is only going to help you. Dan asks, what do you believe are the strongest undergraduate extracurriculars? Dan, the strongest extracurricular is the one that you want to do. I do not have a list of, here are the most impressive things you can be doing. Here are the things that are law school specific or what have you. I don't think about it that way. I think about, I'm looking to see, is someone engaged in something outside their studies? What are their interests? I'm trying to form a picture of a person, but I don't have an idea, a secret idea of like, here's the only kind of person I want to admit. You should follow your heart. I'm sorry to sound so corny, but I really mean it. Like there just is not a magical set of extracurriculars that are going to get you into law school or keep you out of law school. That's all I got to say. Follow your heart. It's corny, but really, I swear to you, it's the right advice. Here's a name I like. Cats 88. For the awards section of the education part of the application, is it necessary to list Dean's List? For example, if I had all semesters except when I was abroad, that would mean listing it 7 times, and it's probably implied with my GPA? ? Don't want to include unnecessary info or waste space, but also don't want to not include it if it could be a red flag. Thanks. I would include it. Not all schools have Dean's Lists. You're right that if you have a very high GPA, that sort of tells its own story, but I think Dean's List is good. So I would just say Dean's List, and then name the semesters. Or you could say it by year if you want to shorten it. So it's like 2024 to 2025, or, continuous paren, except semester, whatever. But yeah, I think you should do it. It's very clear. It might take some typing by you, but the person reading it only has to see Dean's List at a lot of dates, and they get the point. So I would include it. NK asks, what is my favorite part of the job? Oh, I have so many parts of the job that I love. I mean, I really love my job. There are a couple things I hate, but mostly I really love it. I love reading the applications. I love learning people's stories. I love meeting people. I love dealing with our students. Right after this, I'm going to go do this ridiculous video. I feel like I get to do a lot of ridiculous videos, which is this weird side gig to my job I never anticipated. Bottom line, I love my job. So, yeah. I'd give you a more interesting answer if you asked what I hate. But you didn't, so I'm not going to tell you. Slices for Law asks, how do you become a law school dean? If you mean like the dean of the law school, like the big dean, the way you do that is you become a scholar, you become a law professor, and then you learn how to be a leader, and you go for it. Honestly, it's a tough job, and there aren't like tons of qualified people out there wanting to be law school deans. So I feel like that's your dream. The hardest part is getting to be a law professor. But if you get there, you can maybe get to be a dean without too much trouble. If you mean my kind of dean and assistant dean, it's so many different paths, and it really depends what office you're in charge of. Admissions is different from careers, is different from student life. So come to law school and then ask the people, the administrators where you are, how they got there, and get their advice. Okay, here is a question that I used to get all the time. I seem not to have gotten it. I feel like it's changed a little bit. I don't get it as much recently, but I still think it's an important question. So I'm glad that David JK36 asked it. How important is it to go to law school in the state in which you want to practice? It depends. it depends on what law school you're talking about. So if you know for sure that you want to practice in a given city, and it is a like sort of small, maybe more insular city, then it can be pretty important to practice there, right? I mean, to go to school there, right? There are not a lot of people come from the outside. But if you're interested in that city, you probably already have some ties to that city, so that would overcome if you went to a different school and make it easier. But let's say you've never been to South Carolina and you really are completely confident that you want to live your life in South Carolina, then I would say going to school in South Carolina is going to be really helpful for you. That said, there are also schools that do a great job of positioning you all over the country, and it's the schools that you think. It's the the national schools, the schools that send people to lots of different areas, and that can be a real advantage because one, maybe you think you want to be in New York, but maybe you don't. Maybe you want to be in California. If you've gone to a less national school in New York and you change your mind, it can be hard to get to California. Whereas if you go to a national school, you know, the world is your oyster. It's a much more portable degree in those circumstances. And I would say even national schools vary the extent to which they are truly national in terms of the number of states and the number of markets they place people in. So look at that carefully. But if you're thinking of, all right, I'm just going to make a number. Let's say you're thinking about two schools that are not like at the very top of the heap. Let's say they're ranked 40. Two schools that are ranked 40, and one is in the market you want to go to and one is not. You should 100% go to the school that is in the market you want to go to. So it can vary a lot what the answer is depending on the particulars. But yes, it often makes sense, but not always. Michael Archangel 98, interesting, asks, how do you view KJD applicants? Is there an inherent disadvantage? KJD meaning you're coming straight from undergrad and applying to law school right away. There is something of a disadvantage just because you have less time. Like if you're coming right from undergrad, you haven't had postgraduate work, and some of the people who are applying will have had postgraduate work. So that's just like less stuff for a law school to look at. That said, if you have made the most of your time in college and you've been working in the summers and you've been doing extracurriculars and you have a vibrant resume, then there is much less of a disadvantage, or maybe no disadvantage at all. We certainly admit lots of people who are coming straight from undergrad, but it does mean you have more of an onus on you if you're coming straight from undergrad to have made the most of your time there and to make sure you really have given it your all and are giving the admissions office something to look at. Okay, Payden asks a really specific, good question. They ask, I'm in the military and my only real option for my undergrad is online school. Is that a deterrent for admission to law school? Payden, that's a great question. Yeah, in general, online schools are not of the caliber of non-online schools, and it's a little bit of a red flag, or I guess not red flag so much, is it something to explore when you're reading an application? Like, what other signs do I see of academic ability outside of the undergrad context? Because it's hard for us to know what to make of the online school undergrad context, because we just don't have there are just not as many candidates coming from there, right? That said, one question I would always have is like, why did you choose this school? Being in the military is a great reason for having chosen an online school. So I would explain that, like, that's why I went here. I would add an addendum about that. And I think that would be, and most of the people I've admitted who have online school backgrounds, it is because they were in the military. So I definitely think that is worth it to do for you, to get that education. That said, I don't know. I mean, I guess you haven't given me a lot of like alternatives to work with here, other advice I could give you. I guess I'd say, you could wait till you're out of the military and then go to undergrad. That's what many people do. And I would also think carefully, if you're going to an online school, they're often for-profit. I'd think carefully about the financials of that and make sure you're getting a good deal. Make sure you're getting a degree that is going to actually educate you, completely independent of the question of whether it's going to be harder to get into law school or not. Make sure that the degree itself is giving you an education. Okay, this is a question that comes up a lot too. If I have letters of recommendation from professors and a manager that are 2 years old, is that okay? I am still currently at that same job. It's okay. It's not ideal. In a perfect world, what you would do is get the professors and or the manager, or at least one of them, to update it, right? Maybe you write to the professor and say, here's what I've been doing. Would you mind updating it just to make it fresh, you know? And if you know, sometimes people, they know they're going to apply to law school. They get the letters from professors when they're in school, and then they bank them, right? And then when they apply in a few years, they use those. Not a bad strategy at all, but the better strategy, or the cherry on top, is if you stay in touch sort of every 6 months with those professors, you let them know how things are going, and then when you're ready to apply, you ask them, can you update it? And then they can include the information you have given them in the updates that you've been maintaining with them. And then it looks like not only were you a great student or whatever they're going to say about you in their letter of rec, you're the kind of person who knows how to maintain human relationships. So that's like a twofer. Hope that's helpful. Here's a question from Jack Kelly, who may or may not be the father of Grace Kelly, probably not. Why has UMich Law decided to not accept the GRE? Because the GRE is not as good at predicting law school grades as the LSAT. The LSAT is a better test for law schools. The GRE was not designed for law school, and even though they say, here's the equivalent score, it's not equivalent. These are different tests. They are doing different things. They are testing different skills, and the LSAT is the better test. My feeling is one of the fun things about doing law school admissions, and one of the advantages as you're an applicant, is we don't ask really anything of you. You can have any major, you can have any set of work experience, you can have any sets of extracurriculars. Like, everybody's very different from each other in law school, and that's a great thing about the kind of education we offer. We do ask you to take this one test. That's it. That's the one thing. So that's why I do it. I think it's a better test. Okay, here's a great question. How would an increase in the number of applicants during this cycle affect the number of students that you admit / the statistics for your admittees? This is going to vary school to school. So some schools in a big volume year, they increase the number of students that they are aiming for. Some schools have bigger classes just because the yield gets unexpectedly bigger, hard to predict ways in a high volume year. Because in a high volume year, the same person who might have had 5 offers in a low volume year will only have 2 offers in a high volume year, right? So they have more choices to make, or fewer choices to make, and it affects the yield. So schools try to predict that, but it's an imperfect science at best. So that could be why class size goes up. But some schools will do it deliberately because they want the tuition dollars, right? Other schools will definitely target higher LSATs, like go in mindfully saying, we're going to use this high volume to increase our LSAT. That's not what I tend to do. I tend to think I'm going to just keep looking for the things I like to look for, only more of them. Like, so interesting people with interesting work who are making it clear to me why they want to go to law school. I tend to just tighten up on those considerations more than the LSAT. But lots of people try to increase their metrics. I don't, because I feel like our metrics are really high, and they're high enough that I know the people here are able to do the work. I have no concerns that they can't, so I'm not going to pay that much attention to trying to increase the LSAT. But that's going to vary school to school, and it does look like this is going to be a high volume year again, like last year was. So it may change a given candidate's outcomes, right? In a different year, people might have had more choices than they're among law schools than they're going to have this year. Okay. Kian Mars asks, does applying closer to the registration deadline look bad? No, it doesn't look bad, but it can create a disadvantage for you. Many schools sort of front load the people that they make offers to, and by the time the deadline gets around, they don't have many seats left at all, so it affects your outcomes there. If you can apply earlier, with a good application, you should. But if you have to apply near the deadline, I think that's fine. But if you're concerned about it, it's worth including in the explanation for why you are applying when you did. Like what about your life made that happen? Especially because you're asking this now in September, and the deadlines aren't for ages. So that makes me think there's some reason it's going to prevent you from applying earlier. So it seems like you should be able to explain that if you want. I will say we accept applications that come in after our deadline, and I'm always astonished that people don't explain then why they're applying after the deadline. Most people don't tell me that, and I think that's the obvious question, and you're not answering it. So if you're applying after a deadline to a school that accepts a late app, you should certainly be saying what happened that made that happen. Okay, so I'm at the end of this giant list that I have. I did not answer all the questions. I think I just got tired, honestly. I hope this is useful. We covered a lot of territory, and I think my brain is drying up. That's all. There you go. That's the honest answer. Thank you all for sending these in. This was a lot of fun. I hope you got some good information out of it. I will be making small videos from here and there over the rest of the season. For the most part, I'm now gonna hunker down and do some travel to recruit people to apply and really dig into reading applications. And yeah, thanks for watching. If you have questions, you know how to tell us. Leave them in the comments below. Send us an email to law.jd.admissions@umich.edu. Thanks not just to the amazing Dustin, who we all love. I will just say the other day I was with students who were like, is Dustin ever around? I'd love to meet Dustin. I was like, he's everywhere. Dustin is everywhere. And I felt like a real star to be able to introduce them to him. But anyway, I want to say thank you not just to Dustin, but for all the people in my office who help with this, who review the videos to make sure I haven't said anything insane, who give lots of helpful input, give ideas for videos. So thank you to, let's see, Hagen, to Dee, to Kyle, to Krista, to Raisha, to Shannon. Thank you guys so much. It looks like it's just an individual effort, but it is a team undertaking, let me tell you. So, speaking of teams, wherever you go, go blue.